Hello, marketers and content strategists. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by the Content Marketing Institute and our friends at Acquia and Valier. So nice to have you all here today. My name is Stephanie Stahl. I am the General Manager here at CMI. Today, we're going to help you adapt a digital strategy or improve your digital strategy for the AI era. We've got two great experts here. Before I bring them on, please have a quick look at this slide. Just a few housekeeping notes here. Most importantly, you can ask questions at any time during the presentations. You should see that Q&A box on your console. Put your question there, hit submit, and it comes right to us, and we'll try to answer as many as we can today. There's also a paperclip icon. If you click on that, you can download a copy of the slides, and there's some other resources for you to check out as well. We are live today, but we're recording, so in about 24 hours or so, we will send you a link to the on-demand version of today's webinar. If you'd like to watch it again, maybe you want to share it with a colleague or two, you're more than welcome. Okay, these are our experts today. We've got Nate Holmes, who is the Manager of Product Marketing at Acquia, and Rick Bauer, who is VP of Digital Strategy at Valier. Gentlemen, it is so nice to have you both here. I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'll meet up with you in a little bit for some Q&A from the audience.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have a big crowd here that's still filing in, but thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to your questions after the presentation. But in the interest of time and room for those questions, let's dive in. So why are we here? So I believe we're here because of the rate of change. Paying attention to that change is good. Taking action now is critical. Not only do we need to keep up, but we also need to be ahead of the competition. So once were strategic imperatives are rapidly moving well past table stakes, and if we continue to sit still, we will quickly move from leaders to laggards. In short, we need to accelerate the adoption of the disruption standing right in front of us. But this is not time to panic. This is time to think strategic. And I would say strategic paradigms and the disciplines around them are more critical than ever. If anything, we need to double our efforts on omni-channel thinking and customer journeys, content strategy, and so on. I've seen so many versions of this Gartner buying journey imaged for different business models. I'm sure Nate has as well, but the message remains the same. There's no straight line in your customer journeys. There hasn't been for quite some time. And now this is being amplified and accelerated by all the changes brought to you by AI. So AI can be the cause of and solution to many digital marketers' problems. AI has changed the Google search results page. AI, if you purchased a keyboard lately, Microsoft keyboard, there's a new button on it. AI has changed the Microsoft keyboard, first time in many, many years. AI is in all of our phones, and unless you're really good at locking it down, it's definitely being utilized in the background as much as you might be utilizing it directly on purpose. But while AI is adding to the decentralization of our experiences, it's also helping us marketers build, maintain, personalize, and analyze customer experiences. So I would say that the personalization train has left the building. Frankly, I think it left years ago. Hyper-personalization and micro moments are the expected norm for consumers and businesses. You need to not only know your customer very well, you need to predict their wants and needs. Think Amazon, think Netflix. It's no longer about who lands on your homepage. It's more about how content performs in dozens of micro moments across the vast content ecosystem. So I would encourage you to shift away from focusing on bounce rate and page views to experience-centric metrics like depth of engagement and content velocity. You can do this with any number of intelligent behavioral analytics tools out there to really start to expose that full omni-channel experience. However, and this may come to no surprise to you if you're on this webinar, your website plays a key role in all of this. Number one, I would say that the structured content used on your site can be optimized for reuse, resurfacing, and recontextualization across channels that matter most. Number two, and as a longtime marketer, I strongly believe that your website is still central to your brand and brand trust. And this is where marketing teams maintain the core messaging as a go-to reliable source for your customers. Personally, if I'm shopping or scrolling through Instagram and I see an item that I'm interested in, I will not click on that link through Instagram. I've done it and I know it works perfectly fine, but my trust center typically will go to a browser and go directly to that website and purchase that way. So I still believe in, and that's just a purchasing engagement. They're, just for sources of information and sources of truth. I really do believe that it is central from a trust standpoint. And again, it's also central to your content. So how do we evolve and equip ourselves to harness this power? First of all, I'd say start with your content. It's the foundation for personalization, omni-channel delivery, and AI consumption. It is your omni-channel data to be consumed by AI. Think modular, as it's critical for scaling and efficiency, and be obsessive about metadata and proper tagging of all content and assets. Make sure this discipline is well adopted by your teams, and it'll be more and more critical moving forward that tagging is put into place, because again, all of these systems, including your internal systems, are going to rely on that metadata tagging. So having good discipline around that now and encouraging that going forward is going to be such an important piece. If your content is stuck in full page templates, you're designing for yesterday. Future proofing means thinking in content models, not wireframes. So here, just a really good point is AI is improving that speed of delivering quality content. Again, I believe in that push-pull. AI can be disruptive, but can also be helpful. The more we can start adapting to the tooling of AI within our marketing process, the more we can see success from that. I'm going to pass it over to you, Nate.
Thanks, Rick.
Talk further on that.
Yeah. So the structure of our content is one of those core pillars of any sound content strategy. It makes it better for your audiences and how they're consuming the content. It makes it better for your teams and how you're working more efficiently. And I imagine most of you on this webinar probably have some semblance of structure around your content. But I'd challenge you to think about is like, when did you establish that structure? And when's the last time you evaluated it? And then thinking about all the changes that we've been going through, your users have been going through since that happened, with the rise of zero-click searches, accessibility legislation coming up, applying for adaptive user experiences. Now is a great time to evaluate how you're modeling your content, your different taxonomies, how you're establishing relationships between your content. And so to do that, it's always great to start with the core of like, what are your site goals? What are your digital goals? What does your audience need? And how have those evolved and changed? Because we are now creating for humans primarily, but also machines, and how those are delivering content, whether it's through AI, through search, through other tools. So the good news for everyone here is that clear, authoritative, well-structured content is still the best practice. So it's just making sure that we have that, and we're going to be well set for humans and machines, and then just providing context where we need to with metadata. So identifying like, what are the different types of content that we need? What are the different types, the articles, the event pages, the product pages, the media that we're using, the images, the video, what do we need to do to make sure those are provided with the right context, the taxonomy of how we're grouping this, categorizing it, how are we organizing our content, thinking about the details that we need with all of those, and to make sure that we can connect the dots, establish those relationships. If you're writing a blog, probably have it already tied to an author, but is that also tied to a specific product or service, making it easier to provide those related content recommendations. And then going through all the different user roles and permissions as your tooling evolves. Probably experimenting with AI content writers. What kind of governance do you need in place to help address that? If you're using AI to create components, who should be able to do that? How are you thinking about managing all of that? So now is a great time to think about the structure of your content. And another input you should be thinking for how you're structuring that content is planning for that multi-use delivery. So you're storing your content in a way that's reusable, that it's API friendly for all the different channels and tools that you need to feed your content to. And I was just thinking one example of where this can even benefit you internally. When we think about our media on our websites, our images, making sure that those have alt text so that people who are visually impaired understand the visual on the site. But that's also been a best practice for optimizing our images for search, which can expand our footprint in those results. But one of those challenges is it's another piece of information we need to add to our content. And so with AI now, we can have computer vision looking at the content of an image and then even ask a LLM to write a description for that. So that would be one approach where we could use AI to support the information around our content. But there's also another approach where if you already know if this is an image for a specific product or a specific service, and that's already captured as metadata field, you could then serve that up to the LLM. So it already knows that this is the product, this is the service in the image, and then write a description using that to improve the accuracy of it. So there are a lot of exciting opportunities when you have more structure around your content and being able to look for efficiencies, look for help, but also maintain accuracy where you already have data living within your systems about your content to make sure that what you're automating with like an LLM is accurate. So takeaway, really just like getting your content structured to the right level of building blocks to be reused is critical for this future of AI.
Yeah, and Nate, I would echo on that. I'm thinking of like closed captioning on video as well. You know, I think of the cyclical piece of AI, right, where AI can be so helpful. Like the video production tools now can so accurately reproduce the closed captioning, generate that for your videos as well, because that's again, it's feeding the machine. And then I guess one more thing before moving on to, you know, item number 2 here is I would also still continue to preach authenticity with your content. You know, going back to, you know, Nate and I talked about this a couple of days ago, but just that trust and that authenticity that comes with your brand is so important on your site. Make sure that it's not all written by the robots. You know, try and make sure that this is, you know, a good, strong argument for good copywriting. And then you can always tag to make sure that, you know, some of those keywords are captured and such. But yeah, again, that's my plea for authenticity in content going forward.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So yeah, so let's kind of look at item number 2 here and get into analytics and insights. So I'm going to just focus a little bit on SEO at first and say, you know, SEO now isn't just about search engines. It's about discoverability, you know, wherever your audience is searching. So think LinkedIn, YouTube, Reddit, even voice interfaces and generative AI tools. I like to start to think of, and I'm not the creator of this phrase, but think of SEO as search everywhere optimization. I love that term, optimizing content to be relevant, structured, and findable across the content ecosystem, not just in the Google search result pages. So with this, you got to start thinking of tactics like semantic tagging, metadata consistency. Again, I'm going to be repetitive on that, but you know, again, a modern headless delivery solution is going to really help you scale this, and then even get into such things like just the strategy around syndication will really help accelerate and improve those analytics. So here's just kind of a from to, but just as we need to basically shift from outdated KPIs to richer behavioral and journey-based analytics. So you know, as I just mentioned, but understand the micro moments and multi-touch journeys. Focus on content velocity, focus on engagement depth and conversion paths. And don't forget, we can use AI to identify those meaningful patterns and intent. We can start to let the machine help us see those patterns, help us test and start to, you know, modify those journeys based on what it's seen in analytics. So again, use that tool. So and again, if you have strong copywriting available, focus on high velocity and meeting the audience where they are on all of those different channels. So having a good operation process with content, we'll talk about that in a second, but just really being able to accelerate that content and velocity is going to certainly help move you forward. And then, this is where analytics is a key component in a modern marketing toolkit. And just one thing I'm very proud of at Valier that sets us apart is the way we focus on unifying data for outcomes. And I'm saying this is not just about analyzing and reporting on trends. We take that data and turn that analysis into action with your marketing organization. And this is something that we all need to do. I'm proud of what we've invested in and what we deliver on with our deep data insights and capabilities, but this is a practice that has to be at the center of any modern marketing organization. So, again, moving from that table stakes, from engagement analytics to behavioral analytics, up to unified data, and this is at the core of it all, everyone. I mean, this is the data is king. It is going to be, and again, I consider content data, but this is really where we need to get to, and it's a maturity curve that we need to be focused on accelerating on. Nate, I'd love to have you expand on that as well.
Yeah. So I think a good kind of North Star for us again is keeping the customer first. And we like to talk about this as like productive customer journeys, staying focused on what are the outcomes that our customers want to achieve on our digital channels, as well as what our businesses is trying to achieve. And then we can measure against those goals. Always looking for those win-wins. So we can shift from those kind of one-off tactics to looking at the comprehensive journey of a customer. Where are they converting? Where are they getting stuck in those digital journeys and experiences? Where are we seeing success on our sites? And being able to track a mix of some of that anonymous behavior with cookies have been disruptive, and how we can measure and track. But having that anonymous behavior can still give us some insights into where people are converting, especially for those who are not opting in. But at the anonymous level, we can see, especially for like something like paid ads, what's going on in that kind of conversion funnel. But then connecting it to our customer insights is really where we're going to be able to get the best business insights into reporting what matters most to your organization in terms of converting customers, keeping customers, or achieving your organizational goals. And being able to tie these insights to actions is really what we should be aiming for in terms of when we're integrating our content data. What are the things that are going to tell us that we can actually act on? I think exciting thing with AI is just its ability to quickly analyze data, so it can really shorten that time from the data gathering to getting insights and then acting on it. So we're seeing where AI can analyze session replays or heat maps, and then within the tool, make recommendations based on what it's seeing, the objectives of your content, to help you iterate, move faster. And I think with this, and Eric was touching on just how important it is to shift to more of those kind of important customer business metrics versus some of the traditional kind of vanity metrics, is there's a lot of things that are changing very quickly. And there's not a ton of like legislation or standardization. I don't think the AI companies have a priority in making sure us marketers know how to properly attribute site traffic. That's probably not priority one on their list. And so we're all trying to figure out, how do we adapt to this new world? And so I think this quote from Andrew Lang is a good one to remind ourselves of, is, "I shall try not to use statistics as a drunken man uses lampposts for support rather than illumination." So as we're seeing changes in how our traffic's happening, like bounce rates, just trying to keep on top of the trends, and seeing what's going on, not to jump to conclusions, but maybe dig deeper to see what's actually going on. What is this actually telling us, and what are assumptions that we're making based on that? And just being, I think, transparent with your leaders on what you're seeing, the changes that are going on. I know as vendors, we're trying to keep on top of this and provide the best solutions, but it is changing very quickly. So It's exciting, but it's also good for all of us to be staying on top of how things are going. And just one example from our partner Conductor, they just had an article about the attribution gap where LLMs on mobile traffic is often attributed as direct. So because of the way that's going on, if you don't know that tidbit of information, you might be making different assumptions on what's going on with your direct traffic. So trying to just stay informed with what's going on and having hunches and looking deeper into your data is just a healthy approach right now. And anything to add, Rick, on measurement?
No, I just love that quote.
Yeah.
Your lamppost quote. So very, very good. Absolutely agree. So, all right, as I've been a marketer for 30 years, I've been in the digital space for about 20, and for so many years I was talking about personalization and the need to get going on personalization. And for so many years I've seen people stuck here. We're past that, and I said this before. The train has long left the station, but the good news here, along with everything we've been talking about with AI, is we're really starting to see delivery of personalization being powered by AI. We're turning what was basic rule-based personalization into intelligent orchestration, and that is AI powered. And I just, I really am starting to see integrations and the ability to have some intelligence around providing alternative content and helping drive very intelligent, again, beyond rules-based personalization. And there's real business value here. So UX is becoming dynamic. Interfaces shift based on predictive logic, behavioral triggers, and inferred intent. And meeting your customers where they are at the right moment is going to drive in significant increases in revenue. So I really think, again, getting on board with what is happening with AI driving personalization is going to be critical moving forward. Nate?
Yeah, so I think that the future of websites is personalized. It is adaptive. This is where that structured content, where the clean, useful data, where your strategy, where modern architecture really comes together to help your audience reach their goals, as well as your business reach their goals more effectively. So, we've talked about the importance of structured content, making sure that is clear, useful, accurate, but that also goes for the data you're collecting about your customer, creating, a centralized profile for your customers, understanding, what are their behaviors, what is their history with your organization, what are the purchases. That's just going to make it easier for you to provide relevant, engaging experiences for them. And so this could include use of a customer data platform or data warehouse. We're doing things like identity resolution, cleaning up that data, but then analyzing and being able to action that data. Mm-hmm. And just an example for one of our customers of a retail brand, being able to see that their multi-channel shoppers were purchasing 440% more frequently. And that was done by connecting their online and offline data. And so then their marketing team can, confidently go and report out that attribution to their senior leadership. They can make smarter investments when they have those kinds of insights. But I think also it's important when we're talking about customers, we're talking about data, to think about like privacy, trust, like responsible personalization is important, because I think it really is effective when we have that trust. So being transparent about what data is collected, how it's used, respecting user consent and privacy preferences, adhering to regulations, of course, and empowering users with some control over their data and over their experiences. And where AI comes into this is it's great. Again, like I said, analyzing behavior, about predicting things, looking for intent signals. And it also helps us scale our content creation as we're thinking of, now we can tailor our messages, our content for more audiences, and then have AI help to connect that to the right audiences. So being able to scale our content creation in an effective way, but then also being able to get it to the right audiences, connecting it to our understanding of who's visiting our site and any inputs they're giving us there. So AI is also helping us understand our customer behavior, our preferences in real time, thinking about like AI driven chats where that AI can collect more information in that interaction than if a user could just go into your site and entering different disconnected searches. So being able to use that context more than traditional searches. And AI search isn't just for Google or the other big players. Like you can be using some of this technology on your site to improve the results that you're providing on your site. Features like related searches, smart match assist, smart ranking, things that can help the users that are on your site looking for information and returning results faster. And then semantic search, I think, is another big one, not only for our external users, but also our internal tools. If you use a digital asset management solution, you've probably thought about how you're tagging those assets with the right information, but with the advancements in semantic search, you're not going to have to tag an image with fall and autumn. A user could search one of those, and even if it's just tagged with a different term, it's going to provide those because it provides a more understanding of the context of the search. And then, where this ultimately gets to is the dynamic adaptive content rendering on your site, where AI can be, adjusting layouts, providing different calls to action, different offers, creating, real-time content based on the context, the predicted value, and where there are chatbots and agents and where they're adapting their responses to the individual visitor. And this can be happening in the public sector too. I was at the Wisconsin Digital Government Summit not too long ago, and they're imagining like, what does a government AI agent look like proactively, maybe providing renewals. So making that digital self-service just more productive, which is great for me because I don't want to have to go into the DMV or fill it all out of forms. If it can reach out to me and say like, hey, it looks like you need to renew this. Like, is this information correct? Can I use the card on file? Like, I think that's a great example of how it's a win-win for both organizations using data they have about me and making my life easier, because then that's one less thing to worry about. So I think it's just one example of where this can be headed in terms of using that level of like personalized information. So I think the takeaways for me being personalization, like it must be responsible. It's got to be privacy focused. We got to keep and earn and maintain the user's trust. That structured content that we talked about upfront is really important to help fueling those adaptive, relevant, personalized experiences, having that structured in a way where we can connect the understanding of the content with the other understanding of the behavior and what the user is trying to achieve. And AI is an enabler for this in terms of helping remove some of that guesswork to providing more relevance, going from some of that static to more dynamic, from siloed to seamless. So a lot of exciting opportunities around here.
I love that. And just having that grounded AI, which is, listening to your brand and really controlled by your organization is, a power that exists and something that would, should be adopted and not feared. But yeah, I mean, a responsibility comes around this, and I absolutely love the search, the intelligent search as a great way to get accelerated in the area of AI, because this is the voice of your customer, and have AI helping that, the customer see responses and autocomplete everything else that search always did, but just better is again, such a great starting place for anyone that's looking to kind of really start to power their marketing with AI. And then lastly, I just want to say, yes, 100%, I want AI-driven DMV. I don't, if there's a way I can avoid that down the road. So I'm going to bring it right back to you, Nate, in a second, but just I want to touch on, you mentioned asset management, and I'll just say that from just a operational standpoint, we can use AI, as a foundational element to help through the process with recommendations, content recommendations, content authoring, workflow, versioning, tagging, analytics, and so on. So I think that this is another place that I've been seeing AI shine is really just helping that operational phase of content. So as promised, I'm gonna bring this back to you because I think you have a lot to talk about here.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of pressure on marketing teams to do more with less or the same amount of resources. So, like finding opportunities where we can streamline workflows, make processes more efficient, or we can eliminate redundant data entry, where we can connect our content, our tools, make the like user experience for our own internal teams more seamless, be able to gain more insights. These are all things that we're all trying to do. Just a few examples here on the page of how Acquia is working with our customers, with partners like Valier, to work more efficiently. The search everywhere space evolving very quickly. I think, there's a lot of exciting opportunities in terms of pairing the understanding of search behavior with like the information about our businesses, that our existing content, and then how to update, optimize our content for search is an exciting space. Integrated DAM. I've been working in the DAM space for many, many years. It's been a tool that's helped a lot of teams for a long time, but I think it's become much more influential as we look to serve up our media, our images, our videos more dynamically to different channels, having them organized where we're not reliant on people just like searching in a system and linking it off is an exciting kind of area, and a lot of AI innovation going there. And then just the insight-driven strategy, just helping our teams make more informed decisions. And so when we look at like how do we focus on connecting, on optimization, I think a good like customer-centric design still should be the driver in terms of optimizing our digital experiences, our digital sites, with search everywhere, understanding like our customer search behavior as best we can. What are their habits? What are they looking for? How do we get them the right content? Us as marketers trying to expand our footprint in search, maybe looking at trying to optimize for video results or image results or posting on social media stuff. So a lot of the kind of core stuff we've been doing for years, but I think it's just even more important now that there's a little bit more uncertainty around like Google search end result page and the more AI search going on. So making sure that our content is valuable, that it's unique, that it serves a purpose, not just trying to rank for some of those like common knowledge terms, but trying to bring something to the conversation in our content. And then I think another important thing that we can't lose sight of is accessibility, like ensuring that our websites are accessible for everyone, because we want to, expand who can consume our content. And I saw this stat from WebAIM that found that 94.8% of the top million websites fail web content accessibility guidelines and conforming with on their homepage, and averaging 51 errors on the page. That was like an alarming stat to me. And I think part of the problem is that the illustrates that homepage elements have increased 61% over 6 years. So as our sites are becoming more complex, we're doing more innovative, flashy things. Like we have to make sure though that the content is accessible, that we're aligning with those compliance standards, that we're helping everyone be able to consume our content, that we have the checks in place to make sure that our content is accessible in customer sector. So that's another way where we can be optimizing our content in addition to the personalization opportunities. Experimentation is another great area where we as marketers can be working to kind of test different approaches to optimize our content. There's different user behavior analytics tools to help us understand what are the journeys that our visitors are going through, identify where there are blocks in conversions, look at session recordings, heat maps, surveying your users. There's really the barrier to analyzing the data has dropped. So collecting more, user surveys and their opinions can help inform, the language you're using, what they're trying to accomplish on their site. Just a lot of opportunities there. And then ultimately, hopefully this results in like a higher velocity of learning, more nuanced personalization, faster iteration cycles. And one of the core parts we need to think about as marketing teams, as organizations, is like, how do we structure, how do we govern all of this new tech, all the new things we're trying to do, because there are a lot of possibilities with AI, but there's a lot of ways it could go wrong. So a big part of adapting to this kind of new AI world is education, training, the process, the governance that we're setting up to make sure that we're doing this responsibly, and testing, learning, adapting. And I think a continuous improvement framework, not just setting up the automation and leaving it, is really key to making this successful. So using a framework like plan, do, study, adjust, and breaking that down into smaller tasks where it's a little bit easier to understand, like, is this AI doing the thing we were hoping it? How can we adjust it to make sure that it is producing like good results that we want?
The strategic approach is still holding firm, right? Like,
yeah,
if you that accessibility number is shocking, and I mean that's just again the power of what proper strategy, proper build, and the importance there. And then I think you're just saying basically in the world of AI, we can still think agile. We can still have that approach to help us grow. So that's awesome. So kind of wrapping up here, but websites have to serve, as we've said, have to serve dual audiences. They have to serve humans, all humans, and machines. That means the content needs to be trustworthy. It needs to be structured and portable. Think of your site as that content distribution engine. Obviously, there's other engines feeding that site, but think of that site as a, especially from a customer viewpoint, that's that central source, feeding experiences across AI tools and campaign landing pages and social channels and more. So through that, trust will be built through transparency, consistency, I said before, authenticity, and the elements that will matter to both search algorithms and your human users, right? So adaptability will come from design systems, headless architecture, and some good centralized governance. But let's just look at some key takeaways, and then we'll move to questions. I think there's way more than I would put on a slide, but we only have a little bit of time. So, your user's experience is decentralizing, right? But your website still remains a content-rich source of truth for both humans and machines. And I would say, first, put a stake in the ground. It doesn't matter where you are, but if you want to move forward, you have to, yes, I'm saying put maybe a new stake in the ground, but you have to start somewhere. It's like a paralysis analysis is not going to help you in a rapidly moving space. So get a stake in the ground and start moving forward. You really should commit to a modern, scalable, intelligent architecture. This tooling is going to help you move quickly in a rapidly evolving technical world. So getting past single page designs and the technology that's stuck there, you need to be getting into an architecture that can scale. Again, this is exactly what Nate was just talking about. Iterate, start. You can, whatever it is, whether it's content, personalization, data, iterate. Start somewhere, put that stake in the ground, and repeat. And also analyze it. You have data. We have more data than we know what to do with. We have AI to help us with that data. Start to use it and repeat. Scale. When I'm saying scale here, I'm specifically talking about your connected data and your systems. The more you can enrich that data, the more powerfully you can predict your customers' wants and needs. And then finally, I always say share success. Please share success. This is where you can gain ability to expand those connections and budget, because the more your organization knows what you're doing and what you're achieving, the more likely you are able to move to further advancements. So with that, I'll put that at time. I think we have Stephanie. It sounds like we have some questions. So
We do have some questions. We've got a lot of questions, actually, some really good ones here.
Wonderful.
So yeah, let's start with this one. From Allison, can you speak more to what it looks like to store content in API-friendly formats? Nate, I think that was your slide.
Yeah.
Could you speak? Yeah.
So making it more easy to pull specific parts of the content. So like if we take an event page, for an example, like storing in fields like this is the title of the event, this is the location of the event, this is the time and the date, this is a speaker. So like actually like organizing that in different fields versus just like in the HTML. So then, the front end can pull that information and know like, oh, like, this name, that's a speaker, versus like when you as a human, you can read, oh, that's the name, that's a speaker, but actually telling, this field value is speaker. And so that's what I mean in terms of like making it more structured format.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Antoinette wants to know, how do we reuse content without risking duplication problems?
Yeah, I can
Go
start
ahead.
with
Go
that.
ahead.
Sure. So I think reuse, like thinking about like the purpose behind reuse, where the opportunities, it can be reusing across different channels. So it's not necessarily publishing the same stuff on your site, but does this make sense to promote on your social? Does it make sense to promote on different channels? Reusing information in your app if you have like a website, a .com, as well as an app. So just like looking for opportunities where you're not entering that information into multiple, different tools and channels, but being able to connect it back to that source, I think is the big opportunity with reuse. But then there are opportunities to reuse content in terms of, pulling quotes, putting it in different contexts, putting it in different formats. Could probably be its own webinar topic, but it is a good question that you don't want to just be, publishing the same thing everywhere. You're trying to be intentional about where should this information live for your different audiences.
I think the contextual piece is really key there. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Claire wants to know, she says, building on the idea of ad personalization, as AI tailors ad messaging to individual users, we're used to that, how can websites deliver a similarly dynamic and personalized experience without relying on cookies?
Good question.
Oh, yeah.
Rick, you want to?
I'm thinking through that one. How can they say it again, please?
Sure,
I just want to
sure.
catch that last bit.
Yeah, as AI tailors ad messaging to individual users, how
Yep.
can websites deliver a similarly dynamic, personalized experience without relying on cookies?
Okay. So yeah, I mean, you can still personalize, there's still, be it rules based, or, if we start using AI to drive experiences within the website itself, there can be some data behind the scenes that is tied to your own web analytics within a system that can help drive, looking at behavior of that individual. If there's a profile that's been created, if we already know something about that individual, if it's a repeat visit, etc., we can start to personalize content in that session. Certainly, if somebody clears cookies, that can become, that session information will become problematic. But there are ways. Again, the more we can connect those data systems, I think we can really start to keep a view of that customer. And there's solutions that also will rebind that data, so we can still, through context of the user behavior, we can at minimum get in session personalization. But again, now we're talking specifically about just the website. But again, the more we can connect data and structure that data, the more we can still try and capture and work around the cookies. So I know there's some technical cookie elements in there that I would refer to my team on, getting deeper. But yeah, from a surface standpoint, from my expertise with personalization, it's, working within that session information to really start to pull off of some explicit behavior, and then getting in as much into the implicit behavior that we can.
Thank you for that. Let's see. Drew says, are we resigned to optimizing our content for AI search tools and losing tangible KPIs such as traffic, clicks, etc.? I know you said use more meaningful types of measures, but what do you say to Drew here?
I don't think we have to lose some, what we have. I think it's just build off of it. If I'm understanding the question correctly, like let's pull together as much data as we can and build from there.
Yeah, and I think it's just understanding what is it telling you, what might be impacting it. and being careful with the assumptions we're making on that.
Great. Okay. The accessibility stats that you brought up, they were alarming. And others have noticed it too. And could you just go back to that for just a second? There are a few questions about, where did those stats come from? How can the audience learn more about them to make sure they are in fact following suit?
Yeah. So that was done by WebAIM, so Web Accessibility in Mind. So they do an annual report looking at top 1 million homepages. So you could just search WebAIM and look at that. You can find that information there. But yeah, it's an important topic. There's also legislation coming up with the European Accessibility Act. So it's good to know where you're at. There are different tools. We have an optimized product for accessibility, but there are a lot of different ways you can kind of try and get a benchmark of where you're at and then make a plan on how you can improve that. Because website accessibility is not a one-time fix. It's something that you constantly have to be accounting for, maintaining, and making progress on.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to, accessibility needs to be a part of that build process. It needs to be, as critical as anything else that you're going through. It needs to be properly considered and managed and built.
I like that part of the build process, not an afterthought. Yeah. So
No.
great advice. Great advice. Okay. Let's see. Trisha says, I recently learned about answer engine optimization, AEO. Can you explain this development a little bit more and what she might need to do to make her website fit for this?
Yeah, there's a lot there and a lot changing. So I think the good news is kind of hinted at the top that the best practices of like clear, organized, authoritative, structured content is still a best practice. We're still trying to figure out like how do we understand the impact of AI search, and I've seen a few kind of approaches that I think are coming to market in terms of kind of going back to the AI and doing different queries to the AI to see what kinds of prompts, what kinds of sources it then responds with, to try and get some insights like, is my brand going to be a reference for the topics or the queries around this topic, and then reporting out on that. So I think if you're talking with a vendor about this, like it's great to ask them like, how are you getting this information, so you are understanding like what it is actually telling you, how fast those feedbacks can be, because the AI is a little bit of a mystery box. So it's kind of through that testing, through querying it, we're getting some more insights into what the AI is referencing. And anything to add, Rick, that you're seeing?
Just that I feel like this is part of a rapidly moving space, right? So, it's like we're talking about AEO here, and like it's important to pay attention to, and I'm glad to hear that people are paying attention to it. But I think it's going to be continually evolving as AI gets smarter and smarter. Maybe we won't, audience intent can be pulled out of regular content that we're used to without specifically having to go in and make sure that the robots know what we mean. So.
Okay. Renee says we don't have a DAM. We use SharePoint. Any tips for her on sort of getting started with a digital asset management system to help with this?
Yeah, so I think establishing like, what are you trying to do with your media, your images, your videos? Where are you getting hung up in terms of those processes? What teams are creating assets? Which teams are accessing them? What are they looking for? How do you want to connect them to your different channels? Because I think where DAM differentiates from kind of like a SharePoint is the amount of data you can store on your assets. So you can, like we talked about, structured content, metadata in terms of, is this associated with a campaign? Is this tied to a persona, to a season? What are the rights for this? Like making that information clear, not only to your marketing sales, creative teams to understand like, what is the content of this asset? What's the purpose? Do I have permission to use it? How? And then also makes that information available to teams, or sorry, to tools. So connecting to other tools, serve those assets up in different tools. And then the tracking, the analytics you get from using like embedding, an image across different sites. You can see what domains is it being seen on. I created this asset. Is my sales team actually using that? So getting some of that performance metrics too. So I think the big thing is the additional context you can get with the data around it, the AI innovation within the DAM systems, the sharing outside of your organization, and the metrics you get are a few key areas that you'd benefit from a DAM.
I would add one to that, Nate, and that is the speed that you get from a DAM over, SharePoint in most cases. Just the agility and time spent looking for assets and the ability to find things quicker in a DAM, that has value to it. So if the question is kind of like, where do I get started? I would say start with the question of what is the value? Like, how many assets are you using? How many campaigns are you putting out? And start to consider what that means to your organization if you can increase productivity and speed by 10, 20%. So if it's if it's a matter of convincing an organization to move to a DAM, I would start looking at some of the value around moving to that.
Right. That also makes evaluating content a lot easier. You all talked a little bit about that, the need to make sure you are evaluating your content on a regular basis. What would you consider a regular basis? Is this kind of audit an annual thing or more often?
Well, it depends on the content.
Yeah, right.
You're more core, like tied to like conversion or something, that's probably going to be more regular versus maybe some of those longer tail blog articles might be yearly. So I think trying to understand like what is your team's capacity to make changes is also a good thing to factor in terms of how often you're looking at it.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
there could be large organizations that have a dedicated librarian for their DAM, and that's to me that's regular content review, regular tagging review. That's ongoing. That's a daily thing. So it just depends on the scale of the organization.
Yeah,
That's great. Someone asked Rick if your background is AI generated or real.
It is
It's
real.
real because I asked the same question. I asked the same question. Yes.
so convincing.
Yes. It is convincing. Yeah, that's great. Michelle wants to know if you could maybe talk a little bit about some of the AI tools you all are using to make changes to web pages to better optimize them in your own organizations.
Yeah, we try and use our tools. So go to Acquia, check it out. I did say we might work with Conductor. So they've been a great partner in helping us optimize for search everywhere, not just for the search engines. So some kind of exciting innovations going on there in terms of trying to get insights into that AI kind of tooling and metrics there. And really, it's kind of just being infused in a lot of the different tools. Like our DAM has AI technology in terms of helping categorize, just help you work more efficiently. And then we are also exploring different tools related to like the analytics. And Rick, maybe you have a more diverse set of tools you're probably looking at with your clients.
I personally tend to just live in my role. I live in more away from the websites, but myself, but I live in the ChatGPT land. But for the most part, just for tooling within DXPs and DAMs, I think content optimization, content orchestration, like moving things through workflow. That's where I've seen some great success, and just being able to look at analytics and decipher analytics. That's I think some of the more powerful tooling that's I'm seeing emerging. So I'll look more at like what I see out there in the marketplace emerging right now. It's really moving through the in asset management, moving through that workflow, and also just looking at analytics and getting to the point where there's personalization recommendations and optimization recommendations. These are all tools that are anywhere from existing to in the works. So it's a rapidly evolving space.
Yeah,
As is AI
I guess
in general.
yeah, the other thing
Go
I
ahead,
might
Gabe.
just add is, in addition to like some of those like dedicated AI tools, if the tools you use have an API, you can probably connect it to, like if your organization has a Chat GPT license or a Google Gemini. So there might be pre-built connectors in addition to like standalone tools. So there are a lot of different options, and I think that's where like taking a use case like value-based approach is healthy, in addition to, you know, getting a survey of the different tools that are out there.
Agreed. Yep.
Great. All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been extremely valuable. So many great tips today. Thank you to the audience for your engagement too, and some really great questions. If we did not get to your question today, have no fear. We're going to share them with these two speakers, and they could follow up directly if we weren't able to answer your question live today. We will get to you on that. Please join us over at the contentmarketinginstitute.com, where we write about these kinds of discussions all the time. There's always something new for marketers and content creators there. So join us there if you'd like, or better yet, join us in San Diego for Content Marketing World, where we can see you in real life. We've got a great program in the works for September. Go to the website to learn more if you'd like. Contact me if you'd like to learn more too. We'd love to see you there. We will see the teams from Acquia and Valier there. We're very excited about that. And just a reminder too, we have recorded today's session, and we will send you a link to the on-demand version in about 24 hours or so. It will be waiting in your inbox. Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a great day,
Thank you.
everybody.